We're starting right on time this week. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving Up Live right here on YouTube, as well as on Facebook, on Twitch, on Instagram, on X. We're all over the place, except TikTok. We're still trying to be able to work to get to the point where we can live stream the show on TikTok and get a lot of engagement there. But very excited you stopped by on this Wednesday. It's so much to discuss. Matter of fact, there's so much to talk about. I didn't even include the Giannis story. Shams about 3 hours ago came out and said, Giannis and his representatives are talking to the Bucks. It might force a trade. Wendy said today that Giannis requested a trade before the season. As we get more information on that, maybe by Friday's show, we'll have more to kind of sink our teeth into it. There's another NBA story that broke in the wee hours morning, like 3 a.m. Regarding Chris Paul. The Clippers let him go. Talk about that, carving up the context, and it's a good one. Mike Tomlin, you guys have been hearing me for the last few years calling for Mike Tomlin's job for some time now in Pittsburgh. But more than anything, I want to examine the claim. Is Mike Tomlin actually a great coach? I'll discuss that in about 30 minutes from now. Bryce's best 10, my top 10 teams in the National Football League, including a brand new number 1. Talk about that. Get to Bryson's MVP ladder. I do it every other week. I decided to narrow it down to 5 because the previous weeks I've done 10. I could not come up with 10 players that I can say, hey, he should be an MVP consideration. I struggled just to get to 5. I'll hear an argument for the guy I had at number 6, but that's it. So we'll get to that. And of course, predictions for a huge matchup in the NFC tomorrow between the Dallas Cowboys and the Detroit Lions. I think it's an elimination game. I think whoever loses that game, their season is over. Talk about that at the end of today's show. But before we get started, I hope you guys appreciate kind of the Christmas setup we have here. We do this every year. The Santa Claus, the football, Santa the basketball. We're trying to bring a little level of festivity to Carving Up Live over the course of the month of December. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. But let's get started. But first, the New England Patriots. I know I say it every week, but it really must be nice to be a Patriots fan. 20 decades of the greatest dynasty in the history of the sport. Some lean years from 2020 to 2024, and now they're the number 1 seed in the AFC, and they had the best record in football and the longest winning streak in the NFL. At 10 in a row. They're 11-2. They mollywopped the New York Giants 33-15. And I said at the end of Monday's show, and I predicted, I said, listen, I got the Patriots winning and covering, but I can see the Giants with Jackson Dart back. Maybe it's a little bit of a sleepy game for the Patriots looking ahead to their bye week. You could see a lane for the Giants to make it interesting. These are all NFL players. And from the jump, Patriots jump on them and they never look back. So I cannot help but watching this when I watch Drake Maye each and every week. There are certain athletes, regardless of sport, where, yes, they're great, and then there's others that are, there are others that look great, and it doesn't look hard. It looks like they are playing at a different speed, like they are processing the game at a different level than everybody else in the field is, and that's what I feel like when I'm watching Drake Maye. I'm not gonna lie, I have not felt this way since watching Mahomes in his rookie year, his first year starting, where it's, okay, that guy sees things differently. Mahomes famously had a quote that he didn't read defenses terribly well his first couple of years in the league, up until like his 3rd, 4th year in the league. But watching Mahomes, it's, he's just playing at a different speed than everybody. He's seeing the game differently than everybody. He's just on a different level. It does not look hard for this guy. The left-hand passes, we know what Patrick brings to the table. I feel the same way watching Drake Maye. The mobility, the arm strength, the accuracy is off the freaking charts. We can show you Drake Maye's numbers against the New York Giants if we have that. Here it is, Drake Maye against the New York Giants on Monday night. 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, 77% completion, which has become pretty much the norm for Drake Maye. This is a guy who, this season is completing upwards of 70% of his passes, a guy who's completing, in that range. 126 passer rating and 67 QBR. By the way, he's leading the NFL in pass yards. So he's been sensational. That goes without saying. And if you had to redraft the 2024 quarterback class, he's the no question first pick. I would make a strong case with respect to Jaden Daniels. Caleb would be my number 2 pick. I certainly like him more than Bo Nix, more than Penix, and definitely more than JJ McCarthy. Another discussion for another day. But it is fair to say right now, as we sit here today, December 3rd, 2025. Now, will we say this on February 3rd, 2026? Only time will tell. I'm putting him in the top 5 quarterbacks. I've said all season long, I've really said for about a year on this show, that among the elite of the elite at that position, it is a clear and obvious, no doubt about it, top 3. Like, can't be, at least in the present moment, can't be surpassed. In this order, Mahomes, Allen, Lamar. Well, based on the season Lamar's had this year and a brutal stretch of football he's in, I think we do have Lamar's numbers from his last 3 games, and this matters. No touchdowns, 5 picks, or 5 turnovers, rather. 55% completion, been sacked 8 times, pass rating of 63, QBR of 28. Pretty bad. Now Lamar's body of work has to matter, so I'm still going to give him the edge over Drake Maye, of course. He's a 2-time league MVP. But if we look at the rest of the season, either the Ravens miss the playoffs or they make it and Lamar's bad, once again, the postseason, and Drake Maye gets to the AFC Championship game, or dare I say Super Bowl 60 in San Francisco, now we got to have a conversation. So at this particular juncture in time, I've still got Lamar 3, but to me, there's the clear 1 and 2, and after that, we can have a debate. Mahomes, Allen. I just, again, people want to put Allen over Mahomes. People want to do that for years. It'd be nice if Josh would beat Mahomes in the playoffs for once. He's had the ball in his hands twice, down 3 with a chance to win the game in the fourth quarter. Another story for another day. But to me, those are the clear 1 and 2. After that, let's have a conversation. Again, arm strength off the charts. And I don't want to knock New England's receiving core because it is night and day improved from years past. Really, ever since Belichick has no longer been at the controls of personnel, they've been great. Elliott Wolf's done a good job. Vrabel's had control of personnel. Obviously, bringing in Josh McDaniels, who's a terrible head coach, but a great OC. Helped Mac Jones be a Pro Bowler. That was a great move by New England. But Stephon Diggs was thought to be, still good, but not kind of maybe on his last leg. And no one really knew who Keyshawn Boutte was outside of Foxborough. Okay, you got guys like Pop Douglas, guys like that. Hunter Henry's been a productive tight end, and I love Travion Henderson, not a receiver, but good player. Matt Collins was kind of an underrated pickup, good locker room guy, and can be productive. Had a nice playoffs last year with Buffalo. Drake Maye is doing what all of the great quarterbacks in this game do, makes other guys better. To use an example from a guy in another conference, we're going to see play tomorrow, Jared Goff. Jared Goff's a very good quarterback. Like his resume would tell you that. He's been the number 1 seed, previously in his career. He's gone to Super Bowl, 15 wins last year in Detroit, accurate, all of it. But when we watch the Detroit Lions, and this, again, I'm not trying to call Jared Goff like a game manager or something. He's a good franchise-level quarterback. But we're watching Amon-Ra St. Brown and Laporta and Jameson Williams and Jahmyr Gibbs. Do we watch the Lions and say, Jared Goff makes those guys demonstrably better? He makes them better. He's a good quarterback. But is it, they go from an A- player to an A+ player, or it's a B+ player with A+ production? That's what the great quarterbacks this game do. That's what Brady was maybe the best ever at, is that Edelman was a C- talent. No disrespect to Julian, because I think he had a great career, and I love his podcast, by the way. But Tom elevated him. Gronk, a little bit of a different story. Gronk could have been great with anybody. So you pair him with Brady, now it's unstoppable. But Tom did that with Danny Amendola, with the Brandon LaFells of the world. We can just go up and down the list. The Chris Hogans. I'm not saying that that's the case necessarily what Drake Maye's doing with this group of Patriots receivers, because they are talented. But I watch a team and I watch a quarterback who is making his guys demonstrably better. And some credit for that goes to Josh McDaniels. It does. A lot of credit goes to the front office for investing in the offensive line, for investing in legitimate weapons around Drake Maye, when the last few years, I mean, it's fair to say the Patriots had the worst skill position group of players in all of football. So it's a collaboration. It's front office, it's coaching, it's personnel, and it's the quarterback. But ultimately, number 10's got to put it all together, and he absolutely has. And so watching that game the other night, man, it is, as we sit here today, I think he's in that top 5. I really, really do. To me, it is Mahomes, Allen, clear 1 and 2. I will, out of respect, have Lamar at 3, but if this season continues to trend the way it has, you'll have to drop him a little bit. And then you're in that Drake Maye, Stafford, Dak area. And Joe Burrow. The only reason I've knocked Burrow is, in some cases, by no fault of his own, he can't stay healthy. Like, the best ability is availability, and Joe Burrow hasn't been available. Now, if the Bengals make a run and make the playoffs, who knows? All bets are off. But it doesn't look hard for this kid. It really, really doesn't. So kudos to him, and he talked after the game about the fact that, hey, Patriots getting off to hot starts, but maybe need to see a little more consistency on the offensive side of the football in the second half.
I think it started with coach saying no naps. You know, we want to come out here and start fast. And we knew this team has been up in a lot of games, and they got good players over there. They have some good talent, and we wanted to try to get on them fast. And Marcus helped us with that. You know, what a return for him, and the kickoff coverage. I think just all phases of the game showed up at different points, and I still think offensively in the second half we got to put some more drives together to put the game out of reach.
That's fair. Again, the Giants cut it to 15 in the second half, but there was never one moment in time where you're like, oh, the Giants could make this game interesting. On the New York side of things, the only thing I wanted to bring up was this, because obviously they're 2-11, they're one of the worst teams in the league. They're not a high draft pick. They obviously have a bright future. at least in theory, left tackle set, Scadaboo, knock on wood for his long-term health. I know that's always going to be a question when you play football, the way that he plays football. Malik Neighbors will be back. We saw what he did his rookie year with terrible quarterback play. The kid is a stud. And Jackson Dart has potential, and they'll have a high draft pick, and they'll have a new head coach. It's among the teams that are going to have head coach openings. The Giants isn't the worst situation imaginable. It's not. But Jackson Dart, man, we want to talk about long-term health of players. He is, whoever the new head coach is, whoever get tired to be that next guy with the New York Giants, has to sit this kid down, say, Jackson, we saw flashes from you last year. We saw what you did at Ole Miss in college. There's a reason you were a first-round pick. Really talented, got a lot of tangible qualities you bring to the table. The arm strength, you're really, really mobile. You bring a level of, I thought that Denver game, people talk about, oh, the Broncos had this crazy comeback, right? They came back and won the game. No. Bo Nix ran that touchdown in. Giants got the ball back. There were some phantom calls that helped them get in scoring position, but didn't blink on the road against that defense, the Denver Broncos defense, right down the field and got a touchdown. Did Jackson Dart lead the Giants down there to do it? So he's got a moxie about him. He's got a confidence about him. But the new head coach needs to sit him down and be like, kid, we believe in you. You're our franchise quarterback. But you're not going to be for very long if you keep taking these hits on the sidelines. And some folks have knocked, the Patriots linebacker for hitting Jackson Dart the way he did on the sideline. It was a hard hit, helmet to helmet, boom, boom. To me, I put immensely more heat on Jackson Dart for even putting himself in position to take that hit. Mahomes does not do that. Josh Allen can, but let's be honest, Josh Allen's 6'6", 250. He can take those hits. Okay, Lamar Jackson doesn't take those. Lamar kind of early in his career was taking some brutal hits, had to learn to slide. Jaden Daniels, though, is taking those hits, is certainly as much skinnier, much more physically compromised than a Jackson Dart. Look at Jaden Daniels this year, multiple injuries. RG3 never learned to slide, and his career ended before he got a chance to get off the ground. Is that when you have quarterbacks that, and there's a whole reason, there's the whole point of the NFL protecting the quarterback, which people have kind of knocked over the years. I've always defended it. Those guys are the number one reason we watch the game. Because if we got a Super Bowl, remember that 2017 season where we almost got a Blake Bortles versus Nick Foles Super Bowl? That'd have been a disaster. Nobody wanted to see that except for Philadelphia and Jacksonville fans. Nobody. We want to see, again, if we're talking 10 years ago, the Tom Bradys and the Peyton Mannings and the Aaron Rodgers of the world, the Drew Brees. We want to see Mahomes, Allen, Lamar, Drake May, Dak, Stafford, Burrow. We want to see these guys out there and healthy. So I am all in favor of protecting the quarterback at just about any cost. Jerry Jones was kind of one of the people who suggested this, and I think he was right on it. But you yourself have to put yourself in position to protect yourself as well. Listen, I'm okay with, occasionally, Mahomes will use his legs from time to time in the postseason. Remember that run against the Titans in 2019? Bad tackling, but it was still a great play by Patrick, where I'm going to use it at the exact moment that we need it because it's kind of a hidden power of mine. But as we all know, once you become a runner, you are as vulnerable as a running back, receiver, and tight end. That's the way the NFL rules work. You are no longer a quarterback. Jackson Dart has to recognize that. And his answer to the media afterwards, I found even more troubling. He was like, yeah, I'm never going to stop playing like that. I don't know if he's trying to win over the locker room, prove some sort of point. Brother, you're only hurting yourself with that. You are. I mean, you have the benefit of playing in an era where the quarterback is protected. And yes, sometimes the quarterback is going to take off scrambling. It's kind of the superpower of some of the best QBs in today's league. I mean, most guys, Stafford and Burrow are like the only two great quarterbacks that are kind of strictly pocket guys. The rest of them, not the case. Everybody can move. All of the elite ones, at least. You can't keep putting yourself in this position, bruh. Your legs are a superpower. Obviously, it's if the defense is playing, your receivers deep, if they're worried about Malik Neighbors killing them for a 40-yard gain, guess what? Especially if they're playing man coverage, you can eat him on the ground. But you can't put yourself in a position where you're tight roping the sideline. Guy, safety's coming at you 100 miles an hour. Bam! You put yourself in that spot. And that's not listen, unless there's stuff that we're not aware of in the Giants locker room, I think Jackson Dart's got the respect of those guys in there. He has taken those hits. He has, had moments this year against the Chargers, against Philadelphia, even that loss to Denver where he showed some poise, some moxie, okay, maybe we can build around this guy going to year two where he's going to enter 2026 as the no-question starter. But whoever the new head coach comes, whoever it is that comes in to be the new head guy has got to talk to this kid, be like, dude, we believe in you. We love you. You're a franchise quarterback. You cannot be taking hits like this or you're not going to have a long career. And so we can't trust, investing lots of money on you if you do hit, if you are a franchise caliber of quarterback. So that's where I'm at in the Jackson Dart thing. Because I saw that soundbite and I was like, oh, that's kind of troubling. You don't want to see that. Here's something else you don't want to see. And if you are an NBA fan, this should really piss you off. So in the middle of the night, I mean, literally, we're all asleep. Maybe people on the West Coast are awake, I guess, some people. But on the East Coast, we're all in bed. Wake up in the morning, look at my phone. Whoa, Chris Paul's gone. The Clippers, Los Angeles Clippers, released Chris Paul. As Chris Paul put on his Instagram, I've been sent home. It had the deuces sign. So reports are from Shams, from Chris Haynes, from some of the other excellent sources in the NBA sources game, essentially range from, because the Clippers have had a god-awful season. They're awful. They're one of the worst teams in basketball. After having weirdly championship aspirations, despite getting older on the roster, the Clipper delusion has gone too far. But because of the awful start, because of the fact they're being one of the worst teams in basketball, Chris Paul being the kind of at times combative guy that he is, that being the leader that he's been recognized. Charles Barkley all the time calls him the best leader in the NBA. You can make a case for that. He's been a great leader everywhere he goes. Literally every single team that he joins, every single one, winning percentage improves. Every single one without fail. If you're talking about the New Orleans Hornets, the LA Clippers, the Houston Rockets, the Oklahoma City Thunder, the Phoenix Suns, the Golden State Warriors, and the San Antonio Spurs, all of them, win percentage has gone up with Chris Paul. This has not been the case. Now, CP3 is clearly not the player that he once was. That goes without saying. But he clashed with players. Apparently, at one point, quote, he and Ty Lue were not on speaking terms. And I think Ty Lue's a great coach. I've raved about this guy for years on the show. Bro, that can't happen. And when you're a Chris Paul, who announces, last week? Because the Clippers played a road game in Charlotte. CP3's from North Carolina. There's, the great story of when his grandfather was tragically killed, and he goes out there. What did he score? 65 or something? I forget what the number was. In honor of his granddad, and it was a really emotional moment. It's one of the high marks of his basketball life. And so they go to that city, and he says, "This is going to be my last year in the NBA." And we kind of all had an idea of that based on the fact that he did sign with the Clippers. The Clippers, rightly or wrongly, had championship aspirations. CP3 wants to go out the ring. And CP3, more than anything, folks, because he wrote about it in his book. I highly recommend people get it. It came out, the 61, I think is what it's called, because it was after the 61 points he scored after his grandfather was killed. Is ever since the Clippers traded him to Houston in 2017, he's pretty much lived apart from his family. His family is still in Los Angeles. So he was in Houston for 2 years, OKC for 1, including the pandemic, obviously, in Phoenix for 3, Golden State for 1, San Antonio for 1, and now back with the Clippers. So he's back home. He's back with his family. And you kick him out, you cut him. You're essentially, and they were basically, so the Clippers management was saying, hey, we're not making Chris Paul the scapegoat. It sure looks that way. If this is the first domino to fall, I'm not saying you fire Ty Lue. God, no. 100% you do not fire Ty Lue. Do you have conversations about selling the damaged goods that's Kawhi Leonard to any desperate team that wants him? Chances of team taking him are slim, but isn't it Kawhi Leonard that kind of got you into this whole boat? Isn't Kawhi Leonard the guy that you sold you sold your assets to get Paul George, and that now goes down as one of the worst trades in history because Oklahoma City's got a potential dynasty because of it. Who knows? Thunder 21-1 and defending champions. And that's the guy you make your scapegoat? And if nothing else, folks, let's say this Clippers season continues to go to hell, which it probably is going to. This is not the type of locker room that can emotionally bounce back from this terrible of a start to save their season, have this resurgence in the second half of this year. If this continues to go down the tracks, at least give Chris Paul the dignity of finishing his last year in the NBA with the team. Especially given the fact that we are talking about, and this isn't saying much, being the best player in the history of the Los Angeles Clippers is like being the best player in the history of the Carolina Panthers. Like, Panthers have had great players, but it's not like being the best Packer or Steeler or Niner or Cowboy or it's not that. But Chris Paul's the greatest player in the history of the LA Clippers. We can show his numbers over the course of his career. First in Clippers history in assists, second in steals, fourth in double-doubles, fifth in wins, fifth in three-pointers made, sixth in points, and tied for first, which ain't saying much. He's only got 3, but tied for first in playoff series wins. Did Chris Paul have with the Los Angeles Clippers? They were a god-awful organization. Yeah, they drafted Blake Griffin in 2009, first overall out of Oklahoma. But they were going through coaches, the ownership. We know about Donald Sterling, and that speaks for itself right there. Garbage organization, bad management, shared the arena with the Lakers. Ain't a soul in Los Angeles cared anything about the Clippers. And then Chris Paul arrives. It happened to coincide with the time that the Lakers, they just won back-to-back, and then Kobe was starting to age, then the Achilles, and the Lakers kind of fell apart. They had this little era. Lob City. Oh, here we go. Chris Paul, DeAndre Jordan, Blake Griffin. It's kind of this fun, high-flying. Could they win the Western Conference? They had moments where it looked like that. He got you there. And now he wants to finish his NBA career, not just with you because he had the greatest success of his career with you, but also because his family lives in Los Angeles. His wife and kids are in LA. He has not lived with his family consistently over the last, do the math, 8 years. With, obviously Houston, Oklahoma City, Phoenix, Golden State, San Antonio. And you kick him out because his leadership was rubbing people the wrong way. And what's again, it's certain moments like this. People talk, because I heard a shout out to Max Kellerman, by the way. It was great to see Max Kellerman back in the sports media space. He was doing a podcast with Bill Simmons. Great listen. If you have time to listen to the podcast, it's great. Max Kellerman's the man. But Max Kellerman early in the podcast with Simmons kind of said as like a throwaway line, like, oh man, gosh, this Clippers franchise, because they were talking about their bad start. This is before Chris Paul was let go. And he was saying, man, this is a snake-bitten franchise. I consider snake-bitten where you're so close, you almost make it, and you do everything right, and you just can't get over top. The Buffalo Bills are a snake-bitten franchise. I mean, my gosh, in the 1990s, they go to 4 straight Super Bowls. Nobody's ever done that before. And they lose every single one. Are you kidding me? Then, 21st century, they get tortured for 2 decades by Tom Brady. Didn't Brady lose like only 3 times to the Bills? It was something insane. And then they finally get good. They get Josh Allen. And it just so happens to coincide with the Chiefs dynasty. And they beat him every year in the playoffs. And then the year that the Chiefs are down, now the Patriots are back. The Bills are a snake-bitten franchise. Clippers are not snake-bitten. Clippers aren't just, oh man, it's bad luck. No, they've been poorly run their entire existence, pretty much, especially in the modern NBA post-merger. Terrible ownership for the majority of their history with the awful, racist Donald Sterling. But then they get good ownership with Ballmer, who, to his credit, puts all his chips in the middle of the table, goes aggressive in the 19 offseason, gets Kawhi, trades for Paul George. Again, put all his chips in the middle of the table. Didn't work, but kudos to the aggressiveness. I'd rather you be that than safe. You put your, I guess the mistake Ballmer made was betting the entire future of his franchise. Betting not just we can win championships, we can take over the city of Los Angeles from the iconic LA Lakers. You're putting that kind of expectation on the least reliable superstar, maybe in NBA history, Kawhi Leonard. The most flaky physically, emotionally. You're not sure where he's at. I mean, you watch his press conferences over the course of his career. It makes Tim Duncan, seem as charismatic as Bernie Mac. I mean, it's unbelievable. You bet it all on that guy. This is what you've got. Because the Spurs didn't build everything around Kawhi Leonard. They still had the structure in place. Pop was still there. Ginobili, Tony Parker was still there when Kawhi was kind of ascending into his prime. The Spurs were not built around Kawhi Leonard. I think they went like 16-4. The year the Raptors won the championship, Raptors went 16-4 without Kawhi Leonard. And the next year were the 2 seed in the East. Not to take any credit away from Kawhi. He was obviously the best player on the team, but Lowry, Siakam, they had some guys on that team. Norman Powell. So this is not a situation where, snake-bitten franchise just got unlucky. Is it unlucky each and every year when Kawhi continues to get hurt because he always gets hurt? And you trade for James Harden, and what a shock. James Harden, year after year after year after year, chokes in the postseason. And this year, you decide to go all in for winning a championship, basically the same way the Steelers did, by going with a bunch of old guys. Kawhi's old and injured. James Harden not injured, but old. Chris Paul old. What's his name? Bradley Beal's old. What are we doing? Nick Batum's old. Why did you think this was going to work? You were already one of the oldest rosters. You said, you know what? Let's get older. Let's triple down on Kawhi Leonard. But it's Chris Paul's fault why this didn't work. Chris Paul was the only one showing passion because God knows Kawhi wasn't going to do it. Kawhi Leonard was not going to be the guy that everybody rallied around. I mean, the Toronto Raptors, Kawhi was best on the team. Lowry was the leader of that team. Kyle Lowry was the emotional sort of boost that the Raptors needed. Again, 16-4 when Kawhi was out that championship season. And you scapegoat the best player in the history of your franchise on his retirement season? That's messed up. That's really, really messed up. And so, again, people are sort of suggesting, people are curious as to where Kawhi's going to end, or not Kawhi, where CP3 is going to end up. I got to be honest. I think it's one of two destinations. It's either the Lakers for two reasons. To play with LeBron, he's never played with LeBron, banana boat, the whole thing, and to stay close to his family. Although the fact that the Lakers and Clippers now play in different arenas, this is the Clippers, second year in the Intuit Dome. I think that's on the board. Chris Paul could kind of come in as remember what Andre Iguodala was those last couple of years in Golden State? He was on the roster. He played a little bit, but he was more not Udonis Haslem. It was kind of there as an honorary coach, good mentor for some of the young guys. And Chris Paul could play that role. Or he could also play that role with the Oklahoma City Thunder. And listen, don't make no mistake about it. I have put all my chips in the middle of the table on this show saying, if they are healthy, that's the caveat, I still have the Golden State Warriors winning the 2026 championship. But if they don't, that'd be dope to see Chris Paul go out with the ring in Oklahoma City, considering he spent the early part of his career playing in Oklahoma City when he was with the New Orleans Hornets because of the Katrina disaster. But also, Shea's first year in Oklahoma City was Chris Paul's 1 year there, and Chris Paul kind of mentored Shea. Wouldn't that be kind of dope to see them win championship together as teammates? And Chris Paul goes out with a championship. So that'd be cool. And he certainly deserves much better than what the Clippers gave him. That's for darn sure. Just disgraceful. And it's yet another example why the Clippers are the Clippers. This is another example why they are one of the worst franchises in all of American sports. And so, it's just, even if this season was going down the drain, because your picks going to Oklahoma City, obviously, because of the Shai Gilgeous, Alexander, and Paul George trade from 2019. If we get to 33, 34, 35 wins, just a bad year. You're only better than the Pelicans in the Western Conference, really. At least give the man the dignity of finishing the season, his last year in the NBA. That's low stuff. And again, you do it because he wasn't getting along with the coach. Teammates weren't receptive. Yeah, it shows that they weren't receptive because they've won 5 games. We're in December. They won 5 basketball games. So that's where I'm at. Okay, I'm going to take a break on the show, but when we come back, carving up the context on Mike Tomlin. And I know what you're going to say, Bryson. You've talked about Mike Tomlin constantly. A quote from Big Ben Roethlisberger. And let me tell you something right now. As a Steelers fan, there are few voices that hold as much weight within Steeler Nation than the 2-time Super Bowl champion, second greatest quarterback in Steelers history, Ben Roethlisberger, who recently talked to his podcast about Mike Tomlin, about the future of Tomlin and the Steelers, and sort of a little bit of a deep dive into, is he actually a great coach? More on that in just a minute in Carving Up Live. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Carving Up Live. Appreciate everybody for stopping by on a Wednesday. So the two segments, I'm sure you're all used to it by now, that we do back-to-back about a half hour into the Wednesday show. It's Carving Up the Context and then Bryce's Best 10. Of course, in recent weeks, I'd say starting about a month and a half ago, per se, it was actually on the 6-year anniversary show of Carving It Up, is Bryson's MVP ladder. Now, again, that's coming up in about 20 minutes. But essentially what I do in that is, I rate my top, it's pretty simple. I rate my top MVP contenders. But I've narrowed it down to 5 because the last few weeks I've done it 10. I could not find 10 guys. They're like, hey, they deserve MVP consideration. I couldn't find it. I could not do an honest segment like, hey, Kyle Monungai deserves some MVP consideration. Now, Kyle Monungai's been great, by the way. Kudos to him. Derek Stingley Jr. probably would be in the 10. He's been amazing. He's been the best corner in football, but MVP, there's certain guys I couldn't say, hey, they might get legit consideration. Now, Stingley might get second for Defensive Player of the Year, and he'll deserve it to Myles Garrett, but we'll talk about MVP ladder in about 20, 25 minutes from now. But carving up the context, segment we do every Wednesday, taking a story and going a little bit deeper than most will. So, as the head coach of the Colorado Buffaloes, primetime Deion Sanders says, give me my theme music. On this week's edition of Carving Up the Context, I want to talk about, shocker, Mike Tomlin, a guy that I've done many of segments on in this show, particularly this season, in which I have pretty much called for his job nonstop, even at points when the Steelers were off to a 4-1 start. And that is a true story. I even called for his job after the win in Minnesota because of a bad late fourth down call. But this isn't about that. This is about what Big Ben Roethlisberger, second greatest quarterback in the history of the Pittsburgh Steelers to Terry Bradshaw, said on his podcast yesterday, referring to the future of Mike Tomlin. Now, keep in mind, Mike Tomlin and Ben Roethlisberger, they were together for 15 years. So obviously they know each other about as well as, let's say Tomlin knows Ben as well as anybody knows Ben and vice versa. Big Ben Roethlisberger talking about Mike Tomlin on his podcast. Check it out.
It's being talked about around here a lot. Maybe it's time. Maybe it's a clean house time. Maybe it is. Maybe it's time. And I like Coach Tomlin. I have a lot of respect for Coach Tomlin. But maybe it's best for him too.
Sure.
Maybe a fresh start for him is what's best. Whether that's in the pros, whether maybe go be Penn State's head coach. You know what he would do in Penn State? He'd probably go win national championships. Because he's a great recruiter. Here's what you don't do. You don't fire a guy like Coach Tomlin. He's a Hall of Fame coach. He's respectful. What you do is you come to an understanding and agreement. And it's like, hey, listen, I think it's probably best for both of us. And you don't, because listen, we've had the same head coach and Coach Tomlin. We've had different offensive coordinators, different defensive coordinators, but it's kind of been the same story. We've had a few offensive coordinators now, and the offense looks a lot the same. This looks a lot like Matt Canada's offense. I mean, in terms of just like, where's the splash?
Now, I wouldn't go so far, and obviously Big Ben knows more football than I'll ever know, but I wouldn't go so far as to say the Arthur Smith offense is quite as uncreative and as bad as the Matt Canada offense. Matt Canada, you just mentioned that name to Steelers fans, and it brings up PTSD. That is maybe one of the worst offensive coordinators in modern NFL history. But he brings up an interesting point because, again, he's obviously going to be respectful to Tom. And Tom, I want to say this in the front end. Anything that I have said or am saying in this segment or am going to say about Mike Tomlin as it relates to his job security and the fact that I think the Steelers need to move on from him, in no way, shape, or form is an indictment on his character. And he's a solid leader, feels like a good dude. Mike Tomlin would be a great podcast interview. I mean, not just in terms of the quotes, but the experience he's had. He's been in Pittsburgh for 17 years, or actually, let me do the math, 19 years. My bad, 19 years in Pittsburgh since 2007. Won a Super Bowl, been to another. Like, Mike Tomlin, I think, is a good dude. From what I recognize, he's ingratiated himself for years in the Pittsburgh community. His wife, same thing. Got nothing but love for Mike Tomlin away from the game of football. Nothing. I'm talking about in the here and now. I'm talking about 2025. I'm talking about the long-term prospects for the Pittsburgh Steelers to be championship contenders. And the point that Big Ben brings up, is that been different OCs, different DCs, quarterbacks, O-lines, GMs. Same result. 9-8, 10-7. Some years win the division. Some years you don't. Some years make the playoffs. Some years you don't. But you're kind of in that mid-tier. You're picking 20th, 21st in the NFL draft each and every season. In other words, you are mired. You are stuck in mediocrity. And I kind of wanted to break that down to a certain degree because, I showed the graphic. And we can go and put this up on the screen. I've showed the graphic about all of these teams that have won a playoff game more recently than the Steelers. I won't read the list because it's a lot. But let's talk about the teams that have not won a playoff game. more recently. So the Steelers have won a playoff game, 2016, more recently than all of these franchises. The Bears, the Jets, the Broncos, the Dolphins, the Raiders, the Panthers, the Cardinals. 7 teams. They have been through a combined 28 head coaches. So Mike Tomlin, as it relates to, and again, as it relates to the strictly playoff success or lack thereof, same level or I guess slightly better than these franchises who have been just hiring and firing coaches like crazy. Now, I'm by no means saying, hey, the Steelers need to get in the business of doing exactly the opposite of what they've always done, which is, job stability. You got Tomlin, then you got Bill Cowher and Chuck Noll, 3 coaches since 1969. I'm not saying they need to go all the way in the other direction where it's hire and fire every year and a half, 2 years. Then you're a dysfunctional franchise. Nobody wants to be that. But there does have to be a level of accountability for your lack of success in the postseason. And I've talked to some fans of some bad franchises, fans of teams that are on this list. The Jets and Raiders, 2 of my good friends. Shout out to Alfred Parsard Jr. with the Jets, and shout out to my guy Chris Mahe with the Raiders. Both were kind of telling me, like, man, all season long, I give anything to have Mike Tomlin. Of course, like I totally empathize and understand that. I give anything to go 9-8, 10-7, make the playoffs over what the crapshoot that we have each and every year. But, and I've said this in the most respectful way possible, there's supposed to be a different standard in Pittsburgh. I'm sorry, there just is. There's a different standard with the Yankees and the Lakers and the Cowboys and the Packers and the Niners. There's just supposed to be a different standard in Pittsburgh. When you're tied for the most Super Bowl championships with the New England Patriots, when you're a franchise that has been to countless AFC championship games, that has run the AFC North, well, I guess the AFC North in and of itself has kind of existed in its modern context for about the last 25 years, but still, like, them and Baltimore have been the teams of that division. And you're not having any postseason success whatsoever. And in fact, we can show you the second graphic, like, they've been awful to start these playoff games. Again, getting dog-walked. 2017, down 21-0 to the Jags. 28-0 in 2020 to the Cleveland Browns. 35-7 in 2021 to the Chiefs. Down 21-0 to the Bills in 2023, and also down 21-0 to the Baltimore Ravens in 2024. So if Mike Tomlin is the motivation guy, clearly they've gotten off to rough starts. And if he's the defense guy, and the Pittsburgh Steelers had the highest paid defense in the league for the last 5 years, then why do they rank like this defensively? 24th, this is from 2021 to this year. 24th, 13th, 21st, 12th, 28th. That's where the Pittsburgh Steelers have ranked in the last 5 years, each of which they have been the highest paid defense in all of professional football. Mike Tomlin's a defensive guy. I've always said that the mark of a competent head coach, what's your side of the ball? What's your sensibility? What side of the ball do you lean, and how do they perform? How productive are they? Robert Saleh by no means was a successful coach of the New York Jets. Their defense was always good. The Jets' defense was always productive. And look what he's doing in San Francisco now. It's unbelievable with the losing Fred Warner and Nick Bosa. Niners' defense should not be this good. That's coaching. And so when you combine that with the lack of accountability, you've gotten to fire multiple OCs and DCs. You've gotten to bomb some pretty brutal draft picks. Let's keep in mind, Mike Tomlin was not part of the regime that drafted Big Ben Roethlisberger back in 2004 out of Miami of Ohio. Mike Tomlin came into Pittsburgh after they had already won a Super Bowl. Big Ben wasn't exactly the, per se, the leader of that team in terms of winning that Super Bowl. It was more the Steelers' defense, Cowher. We know how that went. He inherited the team 2 years later, 2007, from Bill Cowher. I've heard about this thing like, well, I mean, just give Mike Tomlin a great quarterback and he has incredible playoff success. He went to 14 postseasons. I believe that's the number. 14 postseasons with Ben Roethlisberger. Did you know that in 11 of those, they didn't win a playoff game? Nothing. No playoff success whatsoever. None. So he's had, now to his credit, he also went to 2 Super Bowls because Ben's an all-time great quarterback. The Steelers had some unbelievable rosters. But speaking of which, even when there has been, mediocre to bad quarterback play in Pittsburgh, I mean, if you want to take the years between Terry Bradshaw and Big Ben, so like a 30-year stretch when you have, Neil O'Donnell, you had some pretty mediocre quarterbacks. The rosters were still great. You would still have amazing defenses, solid offensive lines, receivers, the whole bit. Now you can't even say that about the Steelers, at least as it relates to how they've been able to replenish the talent that they've lost. What do I mean by that? 2019, the Steelers got off to an 0-2 start. And in that second loss, a loss of Seattle Seahawks, Big Ben blows out his arm, blows out his elbow, done for the year. So you're 0-2, Big Ben's gone for the year, your season is over. Like right there, we see this all the time in the NFL where a devastating injury to a quarterback, an offensive line, you're just done. That was the case with the Steelers in 2019. What did Mike Tomlin do the very next day? Traded for Minkah Fitzpatrick. What did he, by the way, a great player in his prime, a multi-time All-Pro. Minkah Fitzpatrick was a great player. But A, he's a safety. Those don't necessarily impact the outcome of games on a consistent week-to-week basis. And number two, what did he give up for Minkah Fitzpatrick? A 2020 first-round pick. At the end of Big Ben's career, more injury-prone than ever, mobility's pretty much gone, and more injury-prone, and you never had a backup plan for him. And the draft that would have provided you the backup plan, the year in which the Steelers season is going to go down the tracks, going to go down the toilet, you're going to have the first losing season in the history of your tenure in Pittsburgh. If you're Mike Tomlin, you're going to finish 5-11, 6-10, and you're going to get to draft a quarterback in a draft that featured the following names: Joe Burrow, Tua Tagovailoa, Justin Herbert, Jordan Love, and Jalen Hurts. Any of those guys could have been Pittsburgh Steelers. And Pittsburgh forfeited the right to take one of those guys, to be able to have a succession plan. Hey, to be able to develop those guys. Big Ben still played another 2 years in the NFL. He played 2 years after that elbow injury. Could have developed him behind them, kind of like what the Packers have done with Rodgers behind Favre and with Love behind Rodgers. And you didn't, because you thought about the here and now. You thought about, hey, got to keep this non-losing season streak alive, and kudos to you with the season finishing with Duck Hodges. By the way, I think he's Lainey Wilson's fiance. Shout out to Duck Hodges. But you are just struggling just to get to that 8th win, just to keep that streak going. They said there's a saying that says I may butcher this, but the number one reason people aren't successful is that they choose what they want now over what they want most. Mike Tomlin in that moment in 2019 cared about what he wanted in that moment, non-losing season, than the long-term health and success of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Hey, we'll figure out the quarterback thing down the road. Well, guess what? You end up drafting Kenny Pickett. How'd that work? And then you've tried Russell Wilson and Justin Fields and an old Aaron Rodgers, and it's been pretty bad. So on this week's edition of Carving Up the Context, I mean, you could just go down the list. Like, took Najee Harris over Travis Etienne in 2021. Took Kenny Pickett over a position of need corner, Trent McDuffie. How's he been in Kansas City? Took Broderick Jones over JSN. Like, bomb draft picks, bad first rounders over and over and over. Doesn't he have to share some responsibility, some accountability for those failed draft picks, for the defense underachieving, it being the highest paid in the NFL? Again, I want to repeat this stat one last time. Bears, Jets, Broncos, Dolphins, Raiders, Panthers, Cardinals. The thing that all of those teams have in common, the Steelers have won a playoff game more recently than them. Those 7 teams have gone through a combined 28 head coaches. I mean, the last time Mike Tomlin won a playoff game, and this is unbelievable, Obama was still president. The Cavs were defending champions in the NBA, Cleveland Cavs. TikTok was still called Musical.ly. I'm not kidding. And then Patrick Mahomes was still at Texas Tech. And Josh Allen was still at Wyoming. And Lamar Jackson was still at Louisville. Joe Burrow might have still been at Ohio State for all I know. It's time. Hey, think about the Philadelphia Eagles. Andy Reid, Philadelphia, I think both would say they were better off for that divorce. Andy's gone on to win 3 Super Bowls in Kansas City. Philly's gone on to win 2 Super Bowls post-Andy. Hey, it works. Be able to accept that same responsibility, that same reality if you're Pittsburgh Steelers management. It's time. And I don't disagree with Big Ben. Mike Tomlin he's a Super Bowl champion, went to another Super Bowl in 2010. He has earned the right to have a respectful parting of ways. We don't want to see the Schefter notification. Steelers have fired Mike Tomlin. We want to see Steelers and Mike Tomlin have officially mutually agreed to part ways. And Big Ben suggested, hey, go be the head coach of Penn State. Penn State is kind of struggling in the head coach search right now. I think Tomlin would be a great college coach. The motivation factor, I think he'd be an amazing recruiter. Charisma, I think he'd be great in college. An NFL team, if an NFL team wants to hire him to fix the culture, sure, he can do that. But the standard in Pittsburgh, standard's the standard, right? Standard in Pittsburgh, Super Bowls. Standard in Pittsburgh is building toward championship success, even if you have to have a couple of down years to do that. Not mediocre every year. 20th pick in the first round every year. It's not going to work. So this week's edition of Carving the Context, Big Ben's right. He is. It's probably time. And Big Ben knows things that most of us don't know about the Pittsburgh Steelers. He might know that this is maybe trending in this direction. He knows Mike Tomlin. He probably has a sense that, okay, this is probably it. And it needs to be. It does. I'm sorry, it does. Okay, so let's transition to Bryce's best 10. And I got to tell you, it was a weird one because the top teams were pretty easy this week. Again, similar to Bryce's MVP ladder, although the MVP had to narrow it down to 5 because it was so top heavy. As we get into December, we kind of narrow it down to a few guys who can win league MVP. Whereas Bryce's best 10, it's 10 teams. Can any of these teams win the Super Bowl? Only time will tell. But this is a crazy list. We've got 2 brand new teams that have not been on Bryce's best 10 all season long. We've got a brand new number 1. We've got some surprise rankings for some of these teams. So without further ado, if we can go and get the background music going to okay, we will start at number 10, the 10th best team in the National Football League on this list for the first time in 2025. Welcome in Houston Texans. The Texans are the 10th best team in the National Football League, and here is why. So, again, when you have the best defense in the National Football League and your offense is just competent, if your offense can do anything, if they can rush the football effectively, if C.J. Stroud can be okay, which C.J. clearly had a huge dip off from his rookie year. Last year wasn't very good. Some of that was offensive line struggles. This year it dealt with injuries. That Texans defense is insane. First of all, by the way, they've won 4 straight games. They're very much in the race for the AFC South all of a sudden. Now it's, hey, Colts, Jags, Texans. Who knows who could win that division. But Derek Stingley Jr. been the best corner in football this year. He has been a true definition of a shut-down, lockdown corner. And then you combine him with Will Anderson, who's an elite pass rusher. And you get Danielle Hunter, who they obviously spent money on this offseason. And you have Henry To'oTo'o. And you have all of these guys. D'Amico Ryan's the defensive coach. What I talked about with Tomlin earlier. Defensive coaches, or the offensive or defensive coaches. What is your side of the ball? How productive are they? You're Houston. Can't be better. It's like if you can get anything from your offense, maybe they're a sneaky player in the AFC. And I wasn't big on the Texans this year because of the offensive line concerns and because of the wide receiver concerns outside of Nico Collins. Xavier Hutchinson has stepped up. They've got some pieces that have kind of emerged as of late. I like what the Texans are doing. They are the 10th best team in the National Football League. At number 9, oh boy, falling 5 spots from last week, the defending Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles are the 9th best team in the National Football League, and here's why. This is the second time this season that they have faced the official carving it up elimination test. What does that mean? If you lose 3 straight games, I'm out of you as a contender. If you lose one, hey, no one's going to be the 72 Dolphins. If you lose another one, okay, you're in a little bit of a rut here. You need to get this next one. Let's get out of this little funk we're in. And then you lose again, then I'm out of you as a contender. Philadelphia had that this year. They lost back-to-back to the Broncos and the Giants. They better beat Minnesota, and Jalen Hurts on a perfect pass rate. Now they've lost 2 in a row. They blow a 21-zip lead to Dallas. They get pushed all over the field by Chicago. Now they got I wouldn't say a tough spot, but on the road, what's really going to be kind of a soft home game at SoFi. There's going to be more Eagles than Chargers fans. Monday Night Football, we're not even sure Herbert's playing in this game because he got a broken hand. He had surgery on it on Monday. Must-win situation, extra rest. You better go win this football game. And you better show some sort of offensive productivity. When you're talking about an offensive line, that is a shell of what it was a year ago. Some of that is the loss of Mekhi Becton. Some of that's the injuries to Lane Johnson and Cam Jurgens. They've been beat up front, but still, they've been awful on that in that unit this year. Saquon, shell of what he was last year. And Jalen Hurts has not been good the last few weeks of the season. Defense has been great in Philly. That's kind of been their one saving grace. I need to see much more from their offense. I need to see more balanced running game with the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm not going to take them off Bryson's best 10, but if they lose this game, not only are they off Bryson's best 10, they're out of my contending bubble. The Eagles are the 9th best team in the National Football League. Man, I'll tell you what, this is a team that I did not think would sniff Bryson's best 10 this season. It wasn't because of their quarterback, it was because of their roster, coaching, and otherwise. But making their season debut on Bryson's best 10 in the 2025 NFL season. Welcome to the list, the 8th best team, the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys are the 8th best team in the National Football League.
How about them Cowboys? Yeah!
And here's why. So, listen, and you'll see this the guy's name mentioned on Bryson's MVP letter. Dak Prescott's playing insane football. We can show Dak's numbers over the course of the season. He's been nothing short of sensational. Tied for 2nd in touchdowns, 6th in completion, 1st in pass yards per game, 8th in rating, and number 1 in the NFL in QBR. He's playing his best football. George Pickens 2nd in receiving yards. It feels like a contract extension is almost inevitable between him and Dallas. Again, he head case in Pittsburgh, late for meetings in Pittsburgh. Maybe some of that, you kind of look back at Mike Tomlin sideways because of that. But Dak has been able to rein him in, get the best out of him, not just on the field, but on the sideline, in the locker room. And we know who CeeDee Lamb is. He reminded you of that on Thanksgiving Day. But as I said multiple times this year, if the Dallas Cowboys defense can be average, if it can be middle of pack, 15, 16, 17, if they can be that, they can win a playoff game or multiple in the NFC. Now, they've won 3 games in a row. They've beaten the last 2. They're technically the last 3 Super Bowl champions because KC won back-to-back and Philly won last year. Beat those teams in the span of 5 days. So that's impressive. The defense has shown a pulse. It's shown an ability to stop the run on a consistent basis. The Quinnen Williams pickup has been better than I thought it would be. He has been extremely productive. And in terms of getting to the quarterback as well, Jadeveon Clowney has showed flashes even late in his career. If this Dallas defense is just okay, the way that offense is rolling, number 1 scoring offensive football, let's just say you don't want to let them in the playoffs. Because, listen, Dak has not been to play his best football in the postseason. As a Dak fan, I can acknowledge that. But he's a veteran now. He's in year 10 now. And you give Dak a crack at it this year in a wide-open NFC, you don't want to see that. The Cowboys are the 8th best team in the National Football League. At number 7, up 2 spots from last week, it is the Chicago Bears. The Bears are the 7th best team in the National Football League, and here's why. So, again, when you talk about Ben Johnson and how he's completely changed the culture in Chicago as it relates to running the football, playing tough, hard-nosed, smash-mouth physical football, you could tell he's clearly from the Dan Campbell tree. You could tell that he's a guy who values the offensive line, which the Bears addressed in the offseason. They hit on the Kyle Monangai pick, and you pair him with DeAndre Swift, now you get an all-star running game. You got the 2nd best run game in terms of yards per game in the NFL to the Buffalo Bills. You're talking about a defense that has not been perfect, has been dealing with injuries, but Dennis Allen, as time has gone on, has done a pretty solid job at that group. And you're talking about a Caleb Williams who, listen, the accuracy's got to get better. That is his Achilles heel. He's not a very accurate quarterback. But everything else, holy crap, it's amazing. Arm strength is insane. Mobility is there. The leadership is there. The clutch gene, you can argue Caleb's been the most clutch quarterback in football in 2025. And Ben Johnson has been able to change all that. They've won 9 of their last 10 games. They're the number 1 seed in the NFC. What do you want me to say? Bears fans might want me to place them a little bit higher. Again, there's just about all of the teams that are ahead of them, just about all of them. I either like their personnel better or there's just more experience in the playoffs. So the Chicago Bears are at number 7. At number 6, what do they move up? 1 spot from last week. It is the San Francisco 49ers. The Niners are the 6th best team in the National Football League, and here is why. So, again, Vrabel deserves a lot of love. So does Ben Johnson. So Shane Steichen's probably fallen out of the race, but so it's probably just Ben Johnson and Mike Vrabel is like the 2 front runners for Coach of the Year. I am personally insulted. I'm a Steelers fan, so I don't have any vested interest in the Niners. I am personally insulted that Kyle Shanahan's name is not brought up in this Coach of the Year mix. This is a guy who, without a starting quarterback, without most of his weapons, without his 2 best defensive players, and that's where Saleh deserves a ton of credit. They're 9-4. Oh, wait a second. They're in the race to win the toughest division in the NFL, the NFC West. Are you kidding me? They're winning games. They're dominating games in which Brock Purdy isn't playing very well. Now that they have Christian McCaffrey, or they've had Christian McCaffrey all year. I meant to say, now that they have George Kittle back, and McCaffrey's been amazing this year, and Juwan Jennings, and now Pearsall's back healthy. Now that they've got these bodies back offensively, that is the ultimate, man. If you win your division, if you win like the NFC South, for example, if you're Tampa Bay or Carolina, you really prefer not to play them in the first round, even if that game is in Tampa or in Charlotte. But it's a team that, again, Kyle Shanahan's only MO, win at the line of scrimmage. That's his belief. That we know the Niners have invested in their D-line over the years of the draft. We know Christian McCaffrey, they love to run the football. Kyle Shanahan's always been a run-first guy. That's a tough matchup for anybody in the playoffs. The Niners playing great football, and they're healthy now, are the 6th best team in the National Football League. They haven't really moved the last few weeks. They're going to stay at number 5. At number 5, it is the Denver Broncos. The Broncos are the 5th best team in the National Football League, and here's why. So again, as far as Denver's concerned, I know Broncos fans think I hate their team. I actually don't. I think Sean Payton's an amazing Hall of Fame level head coach. I think your defense is unbelievable. All right, it's great. Talanoa Hufanga, that's my guy. Made a big-time mistake on the pass interference at the end of that Washington game. But Surtain and kudos to Riley Moss, who had a kind of a bounce-back game in certain spots last week against the Commanders. The pass rush is amazing. You got Benetta, who literally saved the game against the, or Benito, who's literally saved the game against the Commanders. Jonathan Cooper, you got Zach Allen. Like, you got some ballers up front. I just don't trust Bo Nix. I'm sorry, I don't. I don't trust a team to win multiple consecutive playoff games, even if they have one or multiple at home. If in their 9-game winning streak, they have trailed every single game. That's not sustainable. I need there to be some blowout ability, so to speak, on your side. I need to see you just come into a game and absolutely dominate. You could say Dallas, but Dallas wasn't fully healthy. Dallas' defense was so god-awful at that point. I mean, you had to come back to beat the Giants. You had to come back to beat Washington. You scored 13 on the Jets. I mean, there's been a lot of bad spots for Denver where they could have easily lost. Now, kudos to them for coming up big late. Bo Nix has been one of the better clutch quarterbacks along with Caleb Williams in the league this season. But you shouldn't need game-winning drives on the road against a Washington team whose season is over with no Jaden Daniels, with a terrible defense. That said, love their personnel, and they got a legit home field advantage in Denver. That goes without saying. The Broncos are the 5th best team in the National Football League. At number 4, they moved up 4 spots from last week. It is the Green Bay Packers. The Packers are the 4th best team in the National Football League, and here's why. It feels like they're starting to put it together. Is that it was all going to come down to, and we still got a whole month left of the regular season and the postseason left. But the Micah Parsons trade for Green Bay, yeah, obviously it was an investment in one of the best defensive players in football. Micah's been amazing. Micah's on pace for, by far, his career high in sacks, about 17.5 sacks. He's on pace for that. He's been amazing this year. But the bet on Micah Parsons was also a bet on Jordan Love. Is that, okay, we're going to get Micah. We're going to have our pass rusher. We believe that we're going to be leading enough of these games so where he can tee off and make some noise, make some damage happen. But Jordan Love, we believe that you can ascend into that elite echelon, upper echelon of quarterbacks in the National Football League. He's been getting consistent points this season, by and large, hasn't turned the ball over. And last week on Thanksgiving, as an underdog, missing some of his receivers on the road in Detroit, short week, he was great. His numbers don't necessarily reflect it. He, again, made some big-time throws to Christian Watson, who's been amazing since coming back. Dontavian Wicks, who stepped up. Musgrave, who stepped up in the absence of Tucker Kraft. Or Josh Jacobs ran the ball more effectively. Like, they're one of the more balanced teams. They're one of the more underrated rosters in the NFL. They're well-coached on both sides. The floor on offense, halfly on defense. I think this Packers team is scary. We know that the race to win the NFC North is going to be a crazy one. Depending on what happens in Detroit tomorrow, it could turn into a 2-team race between Green Bay and Chicago, who play each other this weekend. Cannot wait for that matchup. Green Bay is one of the scariest teams in the NFL. They are the 4th best team in the National Football League. Staying at number 3 where they're at last week, it is the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks are the 3rd best team in the National Football League, and here's why. So few teams could win in blowout fashion with their offense doing virtually nothing. With Sam Darnold, pretty much a no-show. They ran the ball fine. It was a Seattle defense team. Now, some of that is helped by the fact that A, you're at home, but B, more importantly, you were playing Max Brosman, who somehow made J.J. McCarthy look like a serviceable quarterback. I mean, this guy was Will Levising underhanded interceptions in the red zone. It was bad. But it also points to the fact that, God, Seattle's defense is good. And I've said it for the last few weeks. I haven't seen the Legion of Boom's on a different level. We know this. They're not the Legion of Boom defense. I haven't seen that many defenses in the last few years that are as fast as the Seattle defense. And a lot of it's due to youth, particularly in the back end of the secondary. You're talking about Eamon Worry, Devon Witherspoon. Like, they've got some dudes that just absolutely fly to the football. And I think that's going to serve them well in the postseason. Like, that's a brand of football that if they don't win the NFC West over the LA Rams or over the Niners, that can still translate on the road. 100%. I think Darnold's kind of been cooled off in recent weeks, but I think he'll get hot in the last month of the season. JSN has been just insane. He's been having an unbelievable year. So kudos to the Seattle Seahawks. They play great football. They are the third best team in the National Football League. At number 2 in the division, they did drop a spot because of a loss. It is the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams are the second best team in the National Football League, and here's why. So as far as LA is concerned, and before I move to LA, I think we got a comment. Nola Nation super chat. Here we go. Is that Santa Italian? You know what? I don't think he's Italian. He might be Italian. I don't know. I have to check that out. But yeah, again, very festive on Carving Up Live. We got a football Santa. We got basketball Santa. It's very much keeping the holiday spirit on the show, especially with the fact that celebrating the holiday season of the show by doing it through sports. But appreciate the super chat in the comment. Who was that? That was Nola Nation. Appreciate you, Nola Nation, for the super chat. Really, really appreciate it. But no, as far as the Los Angeles Rams are concerned, you're not going to panic too much because of the Carolina loss. Everyone's due for kind of that one head scratcher. Now, one can make a case the Rams have had a head scratcher in all 3 of their losses, right? The 19-point lead blown to Philadelphia, the game that they lost to the Niners at home when Niners were missing everybody, it felt like, and then Sunday against Carolina where Stafford, who hadn't thrown a pick in weeks and months, throws a pick 6, had another pick earlier before that, had a brutal turnover late. With that being said, he's still been argued the best quarterback in football this season. I still love the receiving core. Devontae has been one of the gets of the offseason. There's no question about that. And obviously, the Rams O-line is excellent. Wouldn't panic too much about this team. Everyone's due for a bad loss. The Rams, to me, still the clear NFC favorite. They are the second best team in the National Football League. And the more things change, the more they stay the same. At number 1, for the first time this season, but certainly not the first time in the 21st century, at number 1, the best team in the National Football League is the New England Patriots. The Patriots are the best team in the National Football League, and here's why. I mean, they've won 10 games in a row. What do you want me saying? People are like, oh, the schedule's easy. They're not playing anybody. Listen, you can only play who's on the schedule, and also, because there's this comparison, who's better, New England or Denver? I'll be honest, I like Denver's personnel better, particularly up front on both sides of the ball. I think even Patriots fans would agree with that. Offensive and defensive line, the advantage goes to the Broncos. Today, obviously, the quarterback advantage goes in favor of Drake Maye. But also, I talked about this with Denver. As much as I like their personnel, they don't have a level of blowout ability that's on their side. Patriots are crushing everybody. They're crushing everybody. Again, they had the slip up at times against the Bengals. Still won that game. The Giants game on Monday, I was like, they could be looking ahead to the bye week. Giants are very good. Smoked them from the beginning. And so Drake Maye's playing his best football. He's completing over 70% of his throws. He's firmly in the MVP discussion. I'll show you where I've got Drake Maye in just a moment in the MVP discussion. But the Patriots, it must be nice to be a New England fan. They are the best team in, in the National Football League. It's funny, last year, let's go and show the Bryson's best 10 list, and then I'll say what I was going to say. Do we have it? Okay, here we go. So that says Buffalo Bills. I don't know why this is the Bills. That should say the Texans. Either way, it says Bills. It should say the Texans. Not ranked. They're at 10. If Eagles fell 5 spots to 9, Cowboys weren't ranked. They're 8th. Bears went up 2 spots to 7. Niners went up 1 spot to 6. Broncos stayed where they're at 5th. Packers moved up 5 spots to 4. Seahawks stayed at 3. Rams went down a spot to 2, and the Patriots moved up 1 spot to be the best team in the NFL. What I was going to say is that this year's Bryson's best 10 has been night and day from last year. Last year, and God, I was feeling so confident. I was feeling so good about it. We were so close to getting a Lions-Chiefs Super Bowl because that was my preseason pick. And all season long, the Chiefs can't lose a game. The Lions can't lose a game. They both win 15. And it was pretty much all season long. Chiefs won, Lions 2. Chiefs won, Lions 2. There were moments where it moved a little bit. By and large, they stay where they're at all season long. They certainly entered the playoffs at 1-2. This year, let me think. I've had Philly 1, Green Bay, Kansas City. I've had the Patriots, the Rams. Is that it? I think it's just those 5. I'm trying to look at the list. Yeah, I think I've had those 5 teams. So Eagles, Packers, Chiefs, Rams, Patriots. Those 5 teams have all been number 1 on Bryce's best 10 this year. It has been, it sounds cliche, but man, it really is one of those years where anybody could win. It feels like, I feel like any of these teams, maybe not Dallas or Houston, but it feels like most of them could win the Super Bowl. It's been that kind of year in the NFL. And it's definitely been enjoyable. Okay, let's go and pull up Bryson's MVP ladder. Go and put this up here. Here's what I got. So I've got Jackson Smith-Njigba at number 5. Again, he's not quite on pace. Had a quiet game just because the Seahawks didn't have to do anything offensively against the Minnesota Vikings. But Smith-Njigba was on pace for the first 2,000-yard season in receiving history. He's still been by far the best receiver in the league. Myles Garrett at number 4. The Browns have a losing record. You think it's his fault? Man's on pace to shatter the sack record. He's got 19 sacks. I think he needs 4 to pass Strahan and TJ Watt. They're playing the Titans this weekend. If Shedeur is solid, if the Browns offense, it goes up, 10-0, and they're teeing Myles Garrett off to come after Cam. He could break the sack record in this game. He had 5 sacks earlier this year against New England. You're telling me he couldn't get 4 against Tennessee, as great of a player as he is? Come on. Rain Dakota Prescott, ladies and gentlemen, is at number 3. This is a guy who's playing. I didn't think it was necessarily, I should say, didn't think it was possible. The best football Dak played was 2023 when he carried a very mediocre Cowboys offense outside of CeeDee Lamb to being the best offense of football. The Cowboys offense is more talented this year. Shocker. You give Dak a second receiver, he looks even better. I know that's surprising, even though other quarterbacks have had that. Regardless, Dak's not turned the ball over. Dak's been accurate. That he's always been accurate. The arm strength, being able to work under pressure, to work against the blitz, that's always been one of Dak's underrated superpowers. We know about the leadership. It's been a chaotic year in Dallas, and that's saying something because it's always a chaotic year in Dallas. He's been great. Drake May, I've got number 2 and Stafford number 1. The only thing that kind of separates the two, let's be honest, Stafford's got like 9 more touchdowns than Drake May. I mean, again, even despite the loss, despite playing bad against Carolina, despite Drake May continue this role that he's been on, I would also argue Stafford's played a much, much, much tougher schedule in a much tougher division than Drake May's had. Again, not saying Drake can't win the award, not saying if Stafford struggles next week and Drake, they're on a bye, but if Drake comes back in a couple of weeks and balls out, that the 1 and 2 won't change. I don't know, you might see Dak's name at the top of that list sooner rather than later, but you're not saying that Drake can't win the award, but I'm saying to season in today, I'd still give Stafford the nod because he has been just outstanding this year. So I don't want to dock him just for one bad game because even Drake May has had some off games. Cincinnati, he wasn't necessarily amazing. All right, before we get out of here, appreciate everybody for tuning in on a Wednesday. Shout out again. Thank you very much to Nola Nation for the super chat. I really, really appreciate that. But let's go and get to my predictions for a huge game tomorrow night. I mean, usually these Thursday night games, the Thursday games have actually not been bad this year, but by and large, they tend to be kind of sleepers. I mean, we got Denver 10, Raiders 7 about a month ago. That was a disaster. I thought Al Michaels was going to retire that night. But in this spot, we got a fascinating one in the NFC. You got the Dallas Cowboys coming to Detroit to take on the Lions in a game that features 2 teams they've got a week of rest. It's not the traditional Thursday night football on Amazon where it's short week. No. Both teams, obviously, as they always do, played on Thanksgiving. Whole week off. Let's see how they perform in this spot. So, I think this is an elimination game. I think whoever loses, their season is over. Because if Detroit falls to 7-6, obviously they're out of the race in the NFC North. But also, when the 7 seed Niners have 9 wins, and Detroit will fall down to 7 with 4 games to go, that's a lot of ground to make up. You need an outright collapse by a Chicago, by a Green Bay in order to get the job done. Obviously, got swept by Green Bay, so you have no tiebreakers in that spot. Not like you need one because the Packers have a tie, but still. So for Detroit, you cannot lose at home in a must-win situation. For Dallas, the only reason I'd say it's an elimination game, I think Dallas is, I'll be honest, and Jerry Jones actually talked about this on the radio this week. I actually think Dallas's best chance to make the playoffs is by winning the NFC East. I don't see that much of a path. It's there, but it's slim for them to catch any of Seattle, San Francisco, or Green Bay. But could they catch Philly? Keep in mind, they're just 1 game back of the Eagles in the loss column. Now, the tie again makes things a little bit weird, but Philadelphia's schedule, Chargers, they should win that game with the Herbert injury and the offensive line injuries. But then you got the Raiders, also should be a win. But you got the Commanders twice, divisional matchup, and Washington or almost beat Denver the other night. And then you got a game against the Buffalo Bills. I think Buffalo's going to win that game. If Dallas wins out, and if Philly, even if they have a winning record, 3-2, Dallas takes the NFC East. But if they lose this game, now you need Philly to go 2-3, and with that schedule, I just don't see that happening, even with Philly's offensive struggles. So this is a virtual playoff game. Whoever loses, I'm writing off. They're done. And in such a spot where both defenses I have questions about, I'll be honest, I do. I don't love either group, but one is playing better than the other. And as well as Jared Goff has played this year, and there have been people in the media, hey, Jared Goff's technically played better than Dak. They have the same amount of touchdowns. Goff's got 3 fewer picks. Watch the games. Does Jared Goff elevate the Lions? Talking about this earlier in the show. The way Dak has elevated the Cowboys. Absolutely not. So give me Ray and Dakota Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys to get the upset W. I'll be honest, this hurts my soul. It does. The fact that I have to put the season of, excuse me, I have to put either the season of Ray and Dakota Prescott to bed or of my adopted team, Detroit Lions, to bed makes me very, very sad. I hate that I'm in this predicament. But there ain't going to be a tie. Dallas is going to be 6-5-2 after the game. I've got the Cowboys. I think Dak throws a party. George Pickens, CeeDee Lamb, they do their thing against that struggling Lions defense. The back end is absolutely beat to hell in injuries. And also, is Amon-Ra St. Brown playing? I know they say it's questionable. He might give it a go, but he's not going to be 100%. He, got hurt his ankle against Green Bay last week. That's a tough spot to put the Lions in. I think Dallas goes into Detroit and gets a W tomorrow night. And with that, that is all the time we have for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by. As always, be sure to catch Carving Up Live on Friday night at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, right here on YouTube, as well as on Facebook, Twitch, X, Instagram, everywhere. All the social media platforms, except for TikTok. Like I said, we're working to get the show on TikTok as soon as we can. But check the show out anywhere you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, anywhere you get your podcast via the Grid Network. Also, check out, again, all of our social media platforms. IG and TikTok are at Carving Up Podcast. X is at Carving Up Pod. Of course, please do subscribe to the YouTube channel, Carving Up with Bryson Carver, and to the Grid Network. That is GRYD, the Grid Podcast Network, right here on YouTube, as well as any and everywhere that you get your favorite podcast. Have a great week. Can't wait to see you on Friday. Great show on Friday. We're going to do the last fall view of the regular season, like kind of a post-mortem on Tennessee's weird 2025 season, 8-4. Talk about that. Obviously, we'll reaction to Cowboys and Lions. We'll have college football championship weekend predictions. I cannot wait for this weekend of college football. Predict all those games and a lot more. And, of course, our NFL predictions. So have a great week. We will see you then. Everybody stay safe out there. God bless y'all. Peace out. Come on, Dak. Get the job done, buddy. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.